How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we're talking about BESS testing, sharpness, sharpening, stropping, all of the things. There seems to be a little bit of confusion in regard to the BESS tester. I've noticed that between comments on my own videos, other videos, things circulating in the community, there just seems to be a little bit of confusion, misinformation, stuff like that. So I want to talk about it really in depth today, but I don't want it to be some like sciencey video where I'm like preaching, because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a pro sharpener. I just want it to feel like we're kind of hanging out and talking and learning together, and I want to clear the air on some things in regard to the BESS tester specifically. So let's recap on the video that really caused me to make this one, which is the video that I made yesterday and posted, where we sharpened this Deer Rock Knives Barnyard Junior in 10V. It's 3 thou BTE, 65 HRC, so very hard, very, very thin. And we sharpened it, we stropped it, we were playing around with some different techniques and materials and such, and we had some interesting results. But obviously, because I used the BESS tester in the video, there were people, I don't even know what to call it, just saying things that weren't exactly true. So if you didn't watch the video, basically what happened was we took this knife, we ran it on the BESS tester. It was nearly 400 to start, which for me is kind of dull. But if we look at the chart here for the BESS tester, if you look where it says, 350 to 250 new high-end cutlery edges, okay? So it wasn't, to me, it was pretty dull, but it wasn't like butter knife, okay? I wanted to work on it though. So we ended up doing a very crude sharpening on camera with some water stones. We did a 600 nanowa and a 1000 nanowa water stone. Very, very quick apexing, just kind of like a down and dirty, if you will, quick maintenance that the average person could do, okay? Did a couple of kind of like final deburring passes on the Spyderco ceramic. We checked the edge. It was like lower 200s, which was, a great improvement from nearly 400. Then we did some stropping with Gary Creeley's compounds. We got down to 170 to 150, which again, if we look at the chart, between 200 and 150 is utility razor blade. So with the stropping, with Gary's compounds, we got down to utility razor blade sharpness. Then, just for the heck of it, and to kind of try to show something interesting, we used a very cheap generic strop with kind of the fleshy leather on it, kind of thick, with gunny juice 0.5 micron, and that ended up dulling the edge and putting it back up into the 200s, okay? Now, in the video, I said that my guess, my hypothesis, was that it was probably the leather, because it's so thick and plushy that I think it rolled or convexed the edge, okay? And the whole point of that was to show that the leather is very important when you choose a strop, because you can get the best compound in the world. Gunny juice is extremely good quality. You can get the best quality compound in the world, but if you're applying it to a strop that doesn't work for the compound, it's not going to really do you any good. That kind of thicker, plushy leather would have worked really well with an aluminum oxide compound, which I have a ton of, but it doesn't work so well with those extremely fine poly diamonds, okay? And that's what we showed on camera, was that strop with that compound ended up dulling the edge. Then we took it back to the basswood and got it back on track between 170 150, okay? So great results in the end. The sharp condition on the basswood brought us to a really good sharpness. The reason I want to talk about this today is because, unfortunately, just like everything in the world, you have people who almost take the fun out of the hobby by making it unrealistic. So I'm talking about the people that say that every time that they use the BESS tester and they've finished an edge, they're getting 10 as a best score, or they're always getting below 50, okay? I think that's a little crazy, but that's just me. You have people who will only use systems and they'll get under 100 BESS all the time. So anytime anyone gets even under 200, which is a good score, it is looked down upon. It is frowned upon. One thing I want to say is, when you take a generic, good quality knife out of the box from factory, okay, we're talking Benchmade, Spyderco, Kershaw, whatever, doesn't matter. A decent knife, okay, out of the box. Generally speaking, the factory edges are between 150 and like 230 from factory, okay? Nobody would be thinking that those scores are bad unless we were talking about the scores, right? You generally speaking, you get a Spyderco or a Benchmade or whatever out of the box, and it will work. It will work, okay? We have people in the community that make it look like all of this is ridiculous. You can test edges from custom makers, guys, out the box from the maker, and they will be 150 to 200, okay? So, like, let's stop pretending that everything should be under 100 BESS. That takes way more time and effort and finesse, okay? Let's also talk about the fact that the BESS tester, this is not the end-all, be-all of measuring every type of sharpness, okay? The BESS tester is really good at testing the sharpness of fine edges. That is what I have found, okay? And please chime in. I want this to be a discussion. The BESS tester, from my experience, is really good at testing the sharpness of fine edges. I have taken knives that to me are very sharp, but are a coarser edge, and they score nearly 300 or even over 300. Now, to the elites in the community that generally don't actually sharpen and don't even have a channel, they will frown upon those scores. Even though the knife for me will cut for eternity, extremely aggressive edge, okay? Measuring coarse edges in particular on the BESS, they generally don't really score that well. The BESS tester is really good at measuring ultra fine front end sharpness. Once you get under like 400, like a 400 grit stone, once you get under there and you're trying to measure the sharpness of like a 325 grit finish or a 220 grit finish or something, they generally don't score that well on the BESS tester, yet some of those edges will last longer with particular cutting tasks than a fine edge ever will. I'm talking cardboard, rope, plastic, zip ties, real life stuff, okay? We all know that coarse edges, really toothy, aggressive edges, are some of the best for real work. So you can't just take BESS scores and like apply it to everything in the knife world because it is so particular. They're also finicky. They're also not that accurate. It's a starting point of measuring a specific level of sharpness. Okay? So there are incredible sharpeners that sharpen in a specific way that get really good BESS scores, but we also have some incredible sharpeners in the community that sometimes get not under 200 BESS and their edges are still ridiculously sharp. If we were to take some of the edges that Gabe from the Home Slice does, okay? He invented the dual grit edge, where basically you put a coarse finish on one side of the bevel. So this could be like a 325 grit, and then you flip it over and you do a super kind of fine grit on the other side, a 1000 or a 1200 or something, okay? And the bevel has two totally different finishes. he has gotten some ridiculous test results off of that type of edge. Is it always going to score under 100 BESS? No. Gabe and I were actually talking about that about a month ago, and he was saying that the BESS tester is almost detrimental in a sense because with certain edges, again, it will score kind of bad, but that edge works really well for the user because it's not the type that does well on a BESS tester, but it'll cut for eternity. So this whole ideology about everything having to score under 100 to be good is not real life. There also is no one particular way to sharpen, guys. There are so many different ways to sharpen, to strop. There are so many different materials. Some people that are extremely talented in the community hold the stone in their hand. Jared from Neve's Knives, you'll see him holding the stone in his hand, and people will say, oh, wrong, you're going to be moving with human error, you're going to convex the edge. Michael Christie, another famous sharpener who holds the stone in his hand, and he'll just go to town. And he doesn't work on the full edge all at once. He does sections, so he'll go like this, and then kind of check the edge, then do another section, check the edge, then another section. These are some of the best sharpeners, and that works for them. Some makers or some people who sharpen will do like a low grit stone, then an 800 per se, and then go to 0.5 stroppy stuff on a paint stirrer, okay? Steve Kalari, Sean Houston, they're well known for doing like a 400 grit stone and then a strop, or a 300 and 800 and then a strop, and then, you know, they can hit under 100 BESS with just those couple of things, okay? Again, Gabe from the Home Slice, he does some cuckoo stuff over there. He does 2 different finishes and gets great results. There is no one way to sharpen. Oh, I have a little waspy joining me. There's no one way to sharpen, guys. There's no one way to strop. It's not like if you only strop with trailing whatever. That was another comment. People think that you can only strop taking the tip of the knife and going like this over and over. You don't have to, guys. You can go like that, okay? You can go like that. You can do a little S. You can do that. A lot of people kind of do like a C shape. There's no one way to do any of it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was going back and forth from different grits. You do not actually have to work from coarse to fine, linear, and only do that to get an appropriate edge, okay? You can actually, there are people, Gabe is getting a lot of shout outs here, there are people that will sharpen on like a 1000 grit stone and then go to a kangaroo strop and knock the burr off, whatever, and then go back to the stone to restore that aggressiveness. I did that yesterday, and that was another comment that was left. I finished on the stones with the ceramic ultra fine from Spyderco, which is ridiculously fine, and then I went to the 6 micron strop. So there was someone that was like, you know, you have no idea what you're doing basically because you went from the Spyderco stone, which is equivalent to like a 3 micron strop, and then you went to the 6 micron, and of course that dulled the edge. That's actually not true. Sometimes what we do is we'll go to a fine stone or strop or whatever to knock off any micro burr, but then if we want to restore the aggressiveness of the edge, we'll actually go back to a larger particle or grit size or whatever you want to call it to restore the aggressiveness. So there is no one way to do it. You can absolutely jump between things. The reason it is not recommended outwardly is because one of the things that we talk about in a generalization is scratch pattern. So yes, if you want to make a very specific scratch pattern, let's say you're aiming for a semi-polished or polished edge. What you wouldn't want to do is finish on a really fine stone, or like a fine stone, then go to an ultra fine strop then back to the fine stone, because what would happen is on the strop, you would really polish up that edge and kind of buff out any of those scratches from the scratch pattern of the stone. And then when you jumped back to it going coarser again, you would re-scratch that bevel, okay? So if you don't care about the cosmetics of your bevel, you can absolutely jump all around. Obviously, there are exceptions. We're not talking about dumb stuff here. I'm talking about minor little changes where you actually can go to like a fine media and then back to a little bit of a coarser media to restore some bite and some edge. A lot of this finicky stuff, guys, is made up. Okay, and that's kind of what it boils down to, is a lot of people that don't actually sharpen, don't have a channel, don't have a full understanding. They will kind of parrot things from one specific person and make everyone else look stupid. When in reality, there is science to sharpening, absolutely. We all know there's a science to sharpening. But sharpness means different things to different people. I know some people that would never, ever want a knife this thin. I know some people that would never, ever, ever want a knife with a mirror polish edge, because it could, with certain steels, it can be too slick for their work. I know some people that could never work with a 13 DPS edge because it would break. I know some people that would never want to work with a 25 DPS edge because it's too steep. It all depends on the person, the user, and what they do in their day-to-day life that requires a specific type of edge, okay? So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, because there is no one way, there is no right way. There are all different ways for all different things, and you absolutely can kind of jump back and forth from different grits to do different things. Heck, we even sometimes use certain strops with certain grits just to deburr, and then we jump back on the stones. Like some people to deburr will just run the edge through a piece of pine or something. Other people will go to a strop or a ceramic rod or whatever, knock the burr off, then go back to their sharpening and continue it. Like I said, Gabe will go from the stones to the kangaroo strop, back to the stones to a ceramic rod, all over the place, and still get ridiculously good results. There is no one way to do it. I'm going to flip you guys around now, and we're going to just talk about some of the different types of edges that you can use, what they're kind of good for, because I don't just want to be a talking head here being like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I don't think anyone is necessarily wrong. I think there's a lack of education, and when you only have specific types of people making the biggest content, you may think that's the only way to do things, when in reality you're only seeing a little corner of the community, a little corner of the sharpening community, and that doesn't just cover everything. So yeah, let's kind of, I'll flip the camera around in a minute. I just want to show you one more thing here before I flip it, because this I won't be able to show once I flip it. Let me move this here and angle you guys down. So before I flip the camera around, this is one example here of an edge that has been done differently than some others. So this is the Dixie Stockman in 1095 from GEC. And I ended up freehand sharpening this on video, and we got some really cool burr action where the burr was coming up, and we were able to actually catch it on camera and watch it kind of flake off together, which was really neat. I just want to show you this kind of this bevel here. So we did this together freehand, okay? Pretty even. I've obviously used it since then, so we've got some patina on that edge, but hopefully you can kind of see, there we go, that the edge came out pretty even. We did it together, really cool. This thing is sticky as all get out. I want to see if I can capture how it actually is so sharp it gets stuck on my arm hairs. Luckily, I'm Italian, so I have very, very hairy arms, perfect for knife stuff. Let me see if I can capture this on camera. So this is so sharp that it almost gets like caught. Can you see that? Look at all that arm hair. It's super, super sticky. Ridiculously sharp. Okay? Got some dead skin there too. Word. But this type of edge, this type of sticky, toothy edge is not what everybody wants, okay? Some people want a really beautifully polished edge. Some people want it even more toothy. This type of sticky, toothy edge is really good at grabbing material and kind of just annihilating it. Is it the most beautiful thing? No. Is it reflective? Can I look at myself in this edge? Absolutely not. But it's ridiculously sharp. Okay? So people that only like mirror polish and say that's, what every edge should look like, it's just unrealistic, okay? We also don't have time to do that to every single knife. If this works for the user, I don't see anything wrong with it. I really, really don't. Let's also look at, actually, I don't even think I have to flip the camera around. Let me just pull you guys in a little closer. Let's also just look at some really toothy edges that are not pretty, but work incredibly well. So I have two examples here. We've got the Frankensage, and then we've got this other knife here with a very ugly 15 degrees per side edge. But I'm telling you, these two right here, these ugly beater, really coarse edge knives are some of my best performers. So let's talk about the Frankensage first. I brought a pen out so I can kind of show you guys something. So you can see under all that gunk that once upon a time there was a 15 DPS mirror polished edge, and you can kind of see it through all of this crap here, okay? It was so polished that you can still see it. That was one of the worst edges I've ever experienced in my life. That 15 DPS mirror polish edge chipped so badly when I used this knife, it wasn't even funny. So what I ended up doing was throwing it on the KME. I gave it 17 degrees per side. Let me see if I can capture it. So you can see the distinct change in grit finish, okay? 17 degrees per side. And that is a 600 grit finish. And I'm telling you that this knife is so sharp. It has all this crap all over it. Gets used and abused, and it is still so freaking toothy, it's unbelievable. This knife in particular, partially because it's S30V, did not do well with a super polished, super laid back edge. It was chippy as all heck, okay? This is kind of a good example of why there is not an umbrella, one and done way to do things with knives, okay? It didn't work for this knife. This has the ugliest, one of the coarsest edges, and it is so dang sharp and cuts abrasive material so well, right? I have an even worse example here. This is a really bad one. This is a knife in crew wear, 63 to 64 HRC. And I ended up, just for the heck of it, trying to lay the edge back to 15 degrees per side on the KME. It turned out ugly as heck. It's really uneven. It's way thicker up here. It's all squiggly, okay? This is a 325 grit edge on ridiculously hard crew wear. I'm not kidding. This knife has held this toothy, aggressive bite for so long. I haven't needed to strop it. I haven't needed to hone it. This thing, I baton with it. I dig with it. I beat the crap out of it because it's so ugly. I'm like, what? Why not? You know, why not push it to the limits? It really needs a regrind, quite honestly. I beat the pulp out of this thing. It goes into the dirt. It feather sticks. It cuts everything. And I'm not kidding. It is still so toothy and aggressive and sharp. I can rip right through paracord, rope, anything. This would probably score, if I were to guess, over 400 on the BESS. Between 300 and 400. Because it's not the type of edge that the BESS likes, but it's a type of edge that I like. Truly. I'm guessing it's gonna score like crap on this thing. We'll do a couple here just for, oh, 180. That's actually kind of surprising. We'll do another one. I thought for sure it was gonna be like over 300, close to 400. Because these, sometimes these toothy edges really don't score well. Let's see, we'll do a couple more. But my point is, you know, sometimes these ultra rugged, ultra coarse edges work really, really well for us, especially for beater knives. And if we were to always go by BESS results, you could be discouraged if it scored poorly. You know what I'm saying? Do another one here. Wow, 179. So this is actually doing really well. We'll do one more, but this is actually kind of cool because I thought for sure this edge was going to score really poorly. So look at how ugly it is. That is not pretty. 325. Oof. That's a little coarse, especially for a thick piece of crewware like that. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of clear up some of those rumors or statements that I've seen or whatever, because they're just this elitist mentality in the community is really unfortunate, because I think it's actually going to steer people away as opposed to invite them in. If we're only looking at BESS test scores and not talking about types of sharpness and all that, I think it's missing a huge part of the equation, and it's actually going to scare people off as opposed to invite them in to learn. Wow, 159. Okay, so this edge is, I did not give myself enough credit with that one, because I thought for sure that was going to be a garbage couple of readings. Yeah, I don't want people to be afraid of trying different ways of sharpening, trying different medias and compounds and stones and stuff. Not everyone even has a BESS tester. If you think that testing on your arm hair is sufficient enough, go for it. Actually, you know what? Let's see if this will even pop arm hairs, because that'd be kind of funny if it actually cut the filament really well and then wouldn't cut arm hair, because this is a test that a lot of people do. No, it's not really cutting arm hairs. We had just a couple pop off. It's mostly dead skin. It's like scraping off. There are maybe like 3 or 4 hairs in there. Let's try again. No, it's just not. There are maybe like 2. So this is kind of my point. That's actually funny that, again, we caught that on camera. So I thought that was actually going to score really poorly on the BESS test, because it's such a coarse edge and it's a thick it's a thick motherfucker too. This is a beefy knife. I thought for sure this was going to score poorly on the BESS test, and it actually scored really good. But with the arm hair test, it can't even pop hairs. So it's like, this is kind of the point. You just can't, some people will swear if it's not popping hairs off your arm, it's not sharp. Some people will swear if it's not hitting under 100 BESS, it's not sharp, right? I can bring this knife out in my backyard and do hours and hours and hours of work with it, and it's still got a ridiculously toothy edge. Will it pop arm hairs? No. Will it cut everything I need during yard work and start a bonfire? Yes, it will. It is not black and white, guys. It's just not. And I think that this elitism mentality about sharpening and stropping, saying that you can only do things one way, you can only use certain types of compounds and stones and media, and carbide tear out isn't real, and all of these things, it's like we're never going to invite people in to learn more if you're just being so restrictive of the whole thing. Sharpening is an art. Everyone should learn how to do it because it's really useful and it's really fun. When you're saying that there are 200 rules to follow, and at the end of it, you have to score under 100 BESS, otherwise you suck, it's just not real. Especially when we have the chart saying that, 350 to 250 is new high-end cutlery edges, 200 to 150 is utility razor blade. At the end of the last video, we got 150 to 170. That's utility razor blade. And we were being told the technique was off. All of the materials were wrong. You can't jump around on the strops. You don't know what you're talking about. It's right there. No need to be a turd, okay? No need to be the I know everything, because it's funny, the people that talk the most don't seem to have any sharpening content, okay? And it's not just me that gets these comments. Another great sharpener is Jeff Jewell. He's awesome. He uses some very interesting stones. He does like freehand over his kitchen sink, which I think is awesome. There are so many different sharpeners and ways to go about it. Steely Toes is another great example. Pete from Cedric and Ada. Like, there are so many different sharpeners, so many different ways to do it, and I think you should just find what works for you and what creates the results that work for you in your everyday life, and go with that and try new things, try different things. Some people really like ridiculously toothy edges. Joe Colton, another one. Joe only brings his knives up to 325, I think. Like, every knife that he makes, I think, finishes on a 325 stone, and that's it, because he wants that edge to grab specifically animal like hide and hair and stuff. He does a lot of hunting, so his knives he leaves ridiculously toothy. That way they have that aggressive bite to grab and rip through hair, dirt, all of the things. There would be no point in Joe mirror polishing edges. Not a single point. Because that's not what he needs. A mirror polished edge would not be as beneficial in hunting, So what are you going to do? Say that Joe Colton, who's like a legend, doesn't know what he's talking about? Like, you can't. Yeah, I hope that kind of opens your eyes to things, guys. We're gonna do some more testing with this. We'll do some more sharpening. I need to make a video, like a real actual in-depth sharpening video, not like for the average person, do this to get decent results. I need to actually do an in-depth video, but let me know what you think down below. I missed a ton of really great sharpeners. I know that this wasn't like let's give every single one a shout out, because it would take eternity, but I want this to be a discussion. I just want it to be respectful, and I think, again, the gatekeeping is just too much at this point, and like the obsession over the BESS tester is just a lot. at this point. And they're all people that don't even have a freaking BESS tester. So that's all I've got for you guys today. With that being said, go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. Look at that pretty edge. I'll see you guys on the next video. I love you so much, fam. Take care.